Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. Sorry my mascot's not moving. I'm recording on a different computer. I was playing something and I was running out of time and I didn't want to switch computers to hop on Discord. But yeah, this was my first time seeing Turning Red. I didn't know if I was ever gonna like watch it or anything, even if I like visit relatives to use Disney Plus and stuff. I didn't know that someone in my friend group had Disney Plus the whole time, so we were able to like watch it through that. But I'm glad I got to see this. I know this is one of the like newer Pixar movies, I guess. Trying to remember the last couple ones I'd seen because I'd seen Luca. I still had Disney Plus at that point, and then I rewatched Soul on YouTube TV. But because I feel like all three of those movies were kind of coming out at the same time. But yeah, Turning Red, I didn't end up seeing, and I didn't like go to theaters to see it. I just want to say I really like this poster. There was like a couple of posters for the movies. I was trying to decide, but I thought this one kind of looked the most fun, honestly. But I had a really nice time with this one. Like this is one of those Pixar movies. It's kind of like Encanto in a sense where they're both about generational trauma, but I feel like this one focuses on it like a little bit less. But there's parts I feel like still like hit pretty hard. But this movie was honestly really fun from the start. I really liked the main character May and how this was like a coming of age movie, but it was more kind of focused on teen girls, which I thought was pretty cool because I feel like when you're I don't know, the portrayal of like teen girls and like I think in like TV shows and stuff as an example, or I think of like older movies. I'm not saying like teen girls in everything, but in a lot of stuff I'd seen where they're kind of stereotyped and that kind of stuff is like being really, like kind of bratty or whatever, or kind of mean. So it was nice in this where the main characters, they're all like 13 and stuff, but they're like normal girls. They're like anybody else. That was kind of nice to see. How I mean, it is a movie about like generational trauma, but also about like growing up in puberty and stuff. But then it's also about this girl hanging out with her friends and they just want to go see this concert and stuff. There's something about the vibe of this movie that did kind of remind me of some of the books I used to read when I was younger. I kept thinking of like Dork Diaries for some reason, of like all things. And I think because of reading that kind of stuff when I was younger, it made me feel kind of nostalgic for like when I was 13 too. And I like how this movie doesn't shy away from like all the kind of cringe things you do when you're a teenager. Like there's this one part, it's like one of the only parts of the movie I kind of knew about beforehand, when May she develops a crush on this 17-year-old that works at some convenience store, whatever I think it's called, like Dairy Mart, and she ends up drawing art of her and him together and stuff, but it's like specifically in the art style of like when you're young and you're like kind of trying to learn how to draw in like an anime sort of art style, but you're not really good at it and you don't know anatomy yet, so the faces end up being like kind of squished and stuff. It was like exactly like that. As soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, I know what you're trying to do. But just doing that kind of stuff, where she's like embarrassed about it and then her mom finds out and whatever, and just those kind of like sort of like I mean, I know I'm saying cringe, I'm not trying to be mean, but like that kind of stuff from like when you're a teen, that was sort of funny but kind of fun to see represented in a movie as well. And then this movie takes place in 2002, which made it weird watching this with my friends because they had been telling me before they. Okay, the main thing I'd known about this movie is it gets memed to death. Apparently, there's some video review where some guy starts talking about 9/11 because this movie takes place in 2002, but it takes place in Toronto. It doesn't even take place in the US. So that's weird, but I guess people make fun of that by having like 9/11 memes associated with this movie. And my friends do that so often that I was like, okay, guys, you're finally showing me this movie. Because it's one of those things where everyone else in the group had seen this movie except for me. And I was like, please don't just do that the entire movie. And I'm glad they didn't. I think it was only like 2 or 3 times. One time it happened. Someone made a 9/11 joke like literally before the movie even started. It was like when we were at the Disney Castle logo, and I'm like, you couldn't hold back like 5 more seconds. Um, just I mean, the stuff they show me is kind of funny, but like they do that so often with this movie. I wanted to just be able to mentally separate that from the movie and watch the movie as, the movie and stuff. I feel like this movie, I didn't really know too much about it except, she turns into a giant panda and it's like a metaphor for like puberty and periods and stuff. Um, I didn't know how much of it was going to be about, like, the main conflict of it is like May trying to get along with her mom and stuff and trying to be her own person, and some of her dynamic with her mom kind of did hit like a bit too close to home for me, so I feel like this movie kind of emotionally affected me like a bit more than I expected to, because I've been watching all these horror movies with my friends, and I thought, okay, we're gonna watch like this fun Pixar movie and stuff. It'll be a nice break, and then we watched it, and I'm like, damn, this hit kind of hard for me. um, but yeah, the movie's really fun. Let me get into my notes and stuff. I like how at the beginning of the movie there's all of these fun photos of like May hanging out with her mom. It was actually something I noticed throughout the movie. There would be like there's a photograph of her like cooking with her dad, or just kind of things from her childhood and stuff around the house. I thought that was kind of cute. Um, and then even like during the intro of the movie, they kind of touch on like part of the message of it a little bit, where they're talking about the narrator of like honoring obeying your parents, but you'll lose yourself if you do it too much. And May's just like, good thing I don't have that problem. And you're like, I wonder what the movie's going to be about. Um, there's this one part where May gets excited. She's like telling her friends, I think, about some like feather dusters she bought, and that was kind of, and I was thinking like, okay, that's probably something her mom had told her or whatever about how exciting it is or something, because she has like a little bit of her mom's traits, because I feel like it's sometimes joked like when you're kind of quote unquote finally an adult is when you get excited about like household furniture and stuff or whatever, or cleaning things or stuff. Or it reminds me of my brother being really excited when he originally got like an air fryer, for example. And I'm like, May, you're like 13. You're not ready to be excited about this kind of stuff yet. Um, uh, there's this one part where May, she's talking to her mom, and the mom is saying something about May's friends, and she ends up calling one of May's friends odd, just kind of like out of nowhere. And I was like, oh man, because I've been told that about some of my friends when I was younger too. And then that kind of continues later into the movie, actually. It was like, oh, that's a little sad, where May mentions about that in front of that specific friend, of like, oh, my mom thinks you're odd, and you see the friend going like, wait, what? And then it goes to the next scene, and I thought, oh man, that was probably the worst thing for her to hear. And then part of the movie has to do with them going, May and her friends wanting to go see this band called Four Town, and they're kind of like not even really like a parody of, I kept thinking of like the Backstreet Boys and stuff, or like 90s boy bands. Um, but you do get to see them perform at the end, which is kind of cool. I didn't know. Okay, wait. What was his name? I was looking at the cast earlier because I was curious, because I thought that some of the Four Town members. Yeah. Jordan Fisher voices one of the Four Town members. He's someone I've like started listening to his music a little bit, and I didn't even realize completely as I was watching the movie until I was like looking at the cast later. Speaking of music things, I didn't know that Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell did like some of the music for this. I didn't even like think about that or anything um, when I was watching, but I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, the music in this was good. I liked the Four Town performances. You get like the big one at the end, when they get to actually be part of the plot, which I thought was kind of cool at the end of the movie, where it's like the concert stuff and the red panda family stuff gets kind of all mashed together at the end. Um, what else? I think knowing that the with the red panda, like May turning into a red panda, was supposed to be like a metaphor for and stuff with like the puberty periods thing, and not just completely like, oh yeah, you're growing up or whatever. Um, I feel like that kind of helped of knowing that metaphor like ahead of time of going into the movie, because it made me kind of pay more attention to the dialogue and stuff. Because it is treated as like kind of like a wacky hijinks thing at first of like the mom thinking the red panda means something, and then May, it's like on her end, it's like no, she's literally turning into a red panda. I'm actually glad the jokes with that, where she's like having to run around the city and whatever and hide it from people and stuff, didn't go for like too long, because it was kind of fun, but I feel like that would have taken like too much time away from the movie and stuff. Um, but it is funny to me, and it kind of is with movies where it's like characters will like go through puberty, and instead of it being like a gradual thing or whatever, it like for May, it hits her immediately all in the same night of like smelling bad and the panda thing, and she like cries every once in a while or whatever. Um, like I remember seeing movies of that when I was younger, thinking like, damn, it just hits you all at once, and then I went through and I'm like, oh no, it doesn't. But it was still kind of funny to me. I felt bad for May throughout the movie of her mom like constantly embarrassing her at the same time. But that's kind of the interesting thing of like watching this now that I'm like older and stuff. I mean like I'm an adult and not like the age range of like the main character or anything, of like kind of understanding like why the mom's like that and stuff. Of sort of the overprotectiveness. It kind of almost gives me the same feeling in a way of watching the Goofy movie. I mean, I didn't grow up watching that. I watched that when I was older for the first time. But it was interesting watching it, because I feel like the best way to describe that movie, I gotta rewatch it at some point. It's really good. Of like when you're a kid, you sympathize more with Max, but then when you're an adult, you sympathize more with Goofy and understanding their perspectives. So I feel like with watching this one, it's weird. Like, oh yeah, I really am kind of like an adult now or older now or whatever, where it's like I'll watch these kind of movies and I kind of sympathize a bit more with the parents. But it's like I also remember like being 13 and stuff too, and May's perspective on things as well. So I think it makes it really interesting to watch, honestly. And I do like the whole concept with the red panda. Like it does get backstory in this movie. It's not just like, oh, haha, she's suddenly turning into like a animal randomly or whatever, where it's like part of May's family of like her ancestor asked to be turned into a red panda like during wartime, and it was treated as like a blessing, but then for the descendants of the family, it's like kind of just treated as an inconvenience. But I think what's interesting with the panda, what I liked about it, it wasn't just like a metaphor for puberty, but it was also kind of about like suppressing your emotions a bit, and the panda sort of representing like the sides of yourself you don't show to other people. Like they have the whole thing in the family of like, oh, you suppress it into this like one specific piece of jewelry or something that you have to wear all the time, and there's this whole thing with a ritual of like, if you mess it up, you're the panda forever, and like May's family constantly treating it as a bad thing. But then you kind of learn more about her family members and stuff once it gets towards the end and closer to the ritual. I'll touch on that when I get further into my notes. Um, but I noticed some details when they're describing the rituals that kind of further go with the like puberty thing and stuff. Where they say like, oh, specifically it's a month until the red moon ritual, and that made me think of like periods again and stuff. But then also I thought like, oh, okay, so she has to live with the panda thing for a while as an excuse of like, ooh, what's gonna happen? Well, she's gonna transform, and how is she gonna handle her emotions or whatever. I something I was kind of surprised about was that May, like her parents give her this test to like test her emotions to see if she'll like turn into the panda. And she's already able to find, she passes those like pretty easily and stuff, and is already able to find her happy place by like imagining her friends with her. I kind of expected that was going to be more of like part of her journey throughout the movie of kind of learning to control her emotions. I mean, she does, but the fact that even from the beginning she's already able to kind of find her happy place and stuff, I thought like, oh, okay, she's already sort of on the way there. like she probably would have been able to like control the panda better and stuff. You know, like we already saw that she could. The only reason she kept turning into it was like on purpose, if anything. But then it was also kind of sad, like she was able to go in her happy place so easily, and it was like her with her friends, and then lying to her parents saying it was about like, oh no, being around my family makes me happy or whatever. But like the fact that she was so easily able to go to that happy place with the friends, I was thinking like, oh okay, you're like suppressing things kind of hard and stuff. I mean, hold on, I'm trying to think of how to word this better. Like she was hiding like the goofy fun part of herself from her parents, and the fact that she's able to hide it so easily is kind of more of what I'm trying to say. um you know what character I felt kind of bad for? I felt kind of bad for May's dad, where the he'll try to give his opinions on things when like May's mom is kind of like chewing her out and stuff. And I noticed the mom doesn't even let the dad really say anything or give his opinion on any of the family decisions and stuff. Um, so then it's really nice towards the end. It was actually one of my favorite scenes when May, when she's deciding to keep the panda, or she's considering it, and she's gonna do the ritual, and her dad sees this footage on like the camcorder and stuff of May with her friends, and then goes to talk to her and is like, "Hey, you shouldn't hide this side of you. It made me laugh. You know, you don't have to hide it if you want to." And they have like a nice little heart to heart, and I thought that was a really nice moment because I kind of thought the movie, I guess especially because it focuses more on like moms and their daughters and stuff, and the dad was treated as like kind of a comedic character, not completely as like a what is it called, not the butt monkey, what's the term, comic relief. He's not really treated as that. It's more of like he's just sort of there, you know. So it was nice, like once you got to that scene of like, oh yeah, she has her other parent too, and he hasn't like said anything. You can see throughout the movie that he does have an opinion on things and does want to say stuff. It's just kind of the mom sort of like shushing him a bit. So it was nice that towards the end the movie reminds like, hey, he's a important person in May's life too. Um, and then you have this sort of like generational trauma foreshadowing stuff when May's mom ends up getting the call from the grandma, and you notice she's like kind of freaked out about it. I actually thought it was going to be revealed. I kind of misunderstood something, that like the grandma had not sealed the panda, because there's a part where there's a close up of the grandmother's face when she's on the phone, and I thought I saw a lock of red hair, and I thought, oh, okay, she's like dyeing her hair black, and I thought, okay, maybe she did fail the ritual or something, and it's just like poor May's mom that has been like properly seeing the panda or whatever. But no, what I thought was like a strand of red hair was actually just the scar that was on the grandmother's face, which I kept thinking about towards the end of the movie, and I thought, oh, I think I might have. I mean, I don't know why it's there, but towards the end of the movie, May's mom in the like the spirit world is telling May like, I got into a fight with my mom and I hurt her. And at first I was thinking like, oh, she probably means emotionally, because it's mentioned by other characters. I think by May's dad, of like, oh, your grandma and your mom got into a fight, and your mom. It's mentioned at the same point where the dad's saying like, yeah, your mom is able to turn into like a really ridiculously big red panda or whatever. And now I'm like, I was thinking about it. Once they had that conversation in the spirit world, and I'm thinking like, did the grandma have the scar on her face because of May's mom? Was it not just like an emotional argument, but did she accidentally like physically attack her as the panda, and that's how she got the scar? Because you see towards the end of the movie, May's relatives, like the aunties and the grandma and stuff, they're able to turn into like, you know, I'm gonna call it, I guess, normal sized red pandas, where they're like a little bit bigger than May, which makes sense because they're like, you know, adults, and May's like 13, so of course they'd be different sizes. But May's mom specifically is the only one that is like a huge, gigantic, like kaiju level sized like red panda. So I thought, oh, okay, if she's been able to turn that large this entire time and everything, you know, that would cause some serious damage and everything. I mean, maybe that's not the cause of the grandma's scar, but that was just something I was kind of thinking about. Which I find that interesting, and that's the other thing with the movie of the panda also possibly being like suppressed emotions or whatever, if the mom was having that much guilt and kind of keeping things in and stuff, and the panda being that large, I thought that was kind of sad. Like I was mentioning to my friends, I asked when I watched the movie, I was like, oh, is this gonna be like Frozen with the feelings thing? And someone said no, but I feel like I was kind of right on it though, because they have the whole thing with Frozen. That I guess if we're paralleling here, with Elsa being told the conceal don't feel thing for her like entire life, kind of like May being like you're not able to use the panda or whatever, and it's a bad thing. But then both of them by the end of their movies do kind of use or embrace their abilities in a sense, and kind of a metaphor of like allowing yourself to feel those emotions and like be your true self or whatever, and they end up like happier by the end. So I think I was right. I think someone told me no probably because of like not wanting to spoil it or something. Um, but I was kind of just thinking about that as I was watching this. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to my notes. I thought it was kind of funny that the way that May and her friends end up paying for the tickets is just my friends and I were joking about it of like, oh, they just have have it be like a black market thing of turning everyone at the school into furries where they all they want to take pictures of Maze the panda and stuff. I thought it was kind of nice that like her classmates, I mean, they're scared of her a little bit at first, and there's like a certain point in the movie later where they're like really afraid of her for a little bit, but they're all actually really nice about her being able to turn the panda, and they all get so excited and think it's like cute and whatever. I honestly thought she was gonna get like really bullied for it or something, and at first she's like embarrassed and terrified, but then they're all like, oh my gosh, you're able to turn into a giant panda, that's so cool and whatever. The one of the kids I think does try to like blackmail her of being like, yeah, you're gonna come to my party and turn into a panda, or I'm gonna tell your mom. But I mean, May is the one that agrees to it, so I guess it's not like technically blackmail. Um, it is funny when it gets to the scene with Tyler's party. You keep seeing before May shows up that the party sucked and no one's really doing anything. And then you think like, oh, okay, May turning into the panda is gonna make it better, and that's true. Everyone does start to have fun, but what I noticed is, I mean, they do care about her being the panda and stuff, and they kind of pressure her into it a little bit. But it was that once they turned on the music, then the party became fun and they started dancing, and May's just kind of more of the hype man. But I was thinking like, they just turned on the music even if May wasn't there and were dancing around and stuff. They probably would have just had like way more fun. I just think they weren't like trying too hard or anything. I did think Tyler was kind of an interesting character though, where he's like making fun of May a lot at the beginning and then invites her to the party, and I'm wondering if he even really has friends or anything, because like maybe he was bullying May just to try to seem like popular or something, because we see the party and there's like a ton of kids there, but none of them seem like they want to be there. I feel like they're probably only there, and I feel like that was something Tyler was kind of saying too, of like they're only there, if you turn into the panda and stuff. Like he probably doesn't really have any friends because he's, mean. And then May ends up attacking him in the party out of anger, and he like ends up freaking out and stuff. And I feel mixed about that. Like on one hand, yeah, no, she shouldn't have attacked him and stuff, and she could have like seriously injured him. But at the same time, he was like talking shit about. I mean, not really just her, but also about like her family and her family's temple and stuff. And I mean, his parents do get upset about that, and they get like upset at May's mom of like your daughter attacked our son and stuff. Which I mean, yeah, the kids shouldn't be attacking each other. But at the same time, it's like he called her a freak and insulted her family and his parent. I was wondering, like, does this kid's parents even know what he's like going around saying about the other kids? I feel like they probably should have chewed him out too, of like, hey, you don't talk to people like that. But then it's only May that's made to feel bad, and I mean, yeah, she did attack someone, and that was bad. But I feel like the other kid also should have been like kind of talked to a little bit as well, of like, because it wasn't like the first time in the movie he was going around like saying shit about people, um, like actually really mean stuff. Oh shoot, sorry, I keep trying to scroll through my notes, but it keeps thinking I'm trying to type. Uh, Oh, okay. I found the dialogue. I was trying to find it. I was mentioning earlier that scene of May with her dad. Yeah, he says something about how, like, all the sides of you were okay, even the messy sides and stuff. And I feel like that helps May with, like, trying to decide if she wants to keep the red panda. But I thought it was sweet that the mom in comparison is like doesn't doesn't really like some of the stuff about May of like her friends or how she's into that band Four Town or anything. And then the dad, meanwhile, he sees the video of May having fun with her friends, which I didn't actually think was going to be plot important. I thought, like, okay, they're just doing it for fun, whatever. Hold on a second. Ugh, sorry, I had to sneeze. I didn't want to sneeze into the mic. Anyway, yeah, the dad sees the video of May having fun with her friends and her turning into the panda at school and stuff, and he like smiles and thinks it's like, it's like, oh, I'm glad. Probably thinking like, oh, I'm glad my daughter's like having fun and with her friends and getting to be herself and stuff. So that was really nice actually. And then the design of the spirit realm was cool. Was really cool. Even the whole ritual too. I'm glad I asked my friends to put on like subtitles for the movie because everyone just started. They weren't talking like a ton during the movie, which was nice. But it was mostly during the part when it was like the big ritual of like May getting sent to the spirit realm or whatever. But so it was like a little distracting for me, but the design of it is cool of having like all the bamboo and stuff and the water and everything. And then you get to see May's ancestors like ghost and stuff. And then she turns into the red panda later too, which I thought was kind of cool. Like all of May's family, they go through the separate the red panda mirror thing or whatever, and then May gets to meet her ancestor and is like, hey, am I going to regret keeping the red panda? And the ancestor doesn't say anything, but she turns into the red panda too and seems to kind of actually be really happy. That's probably nice for her because, like, she was the one that, like, originally asked to be the red panda. I mean, I think it was mostly just because, it was like a time of war and she needed to defend her family and stuff, but she seemed happy about it. Probably kept the panda. So I'm assuming it's probably nice for her that like finally one of her descendants decides to keep it and not see it as like, oh, I got this horrible curse from my ancestor or whatever. So that was probably nice. But yeah, the part in the spirit realm, I mean, I fully expected that point. Like, okay, she's gonna have like some kind of heart to heart with her mom. But their conversation was sad, but kind of nice. Uh, you have like the whole. Oh wait, I'm skipping ahead. I'm sorry. I want to continue with the order of my notes. But just the way they get rid of the panda in the spirit realm, I thought was kind of interesting. Where it's kind of like passing through a mirror, where May sees her kind of, I'll call it her old self, I guess, with like the black hair, her like appearance, how she was before she had the ability to turn the panda, and then her current self, where she has the red hair, and when she goes to touch it, the panda goes through. So then when she goes through the mirror, it like literally, I'm calling it a mirror. I don't really know what else to call it, where it like literally splits May from the panda. But the panda seems like it has its own kind of sentience, because she looks back at the panda and it looks sad, or like May's mom's version of the panda has like some kind of expression as well. So I guess it fits with the whole thing of the panda being like literally kind of like a side of yourself in a sense. It almost reminds me of like the Persona games a little bit. Um, but I'm glad that May's mom also has to go through some of the panda stuff too, where she ends up getting upset because you could see it throughout the movie. She's getting kind of upset with the way the aunts and mostly the grandma are like treating her throughout the movie, and then finally kind of lets loose, and then it turns into like a final boss fight against the mom when she ends up invading the concert. That was kind of funny, but that was the only thing I could think of, especially with how like she's really huge and the other characters were really small. But that was a cool moment. Or like when May decides to keep the red panda and she has the ability to switch on the fly, to the point where she's like doing all this parkour stuff on the rooftops and everything. And you know what? I'm glad that her friends end up calling her out on like throwing them under the bus, because there was this scene after the party when May's mom is immediately like, "Oh, my precious May, you wouldn't go to sneak off and do this stuff. Your friends were just influencing you." And May doesn't defend them or anything and says how it was all like literally her idea, and then her friends call her out on it. And I like that they actually don't accept their apology at first, or at least I already forgot the names of all her friends, but the one that wears green um doesn't accept May's apology at first, and I actually like that. I mean, they do eventually accept the apology, and it's revealed the friend has been taking care of May's Tomodachi the whole time. But sometimes it feels like in stuff where they'll, like in movies or TV or whatever, they'll accept someone's apology like a little bit too quickly, where it kind of lessens it a bit. But I actually like that the friends don't at first, and then they kind of eventually do. I mean, it doesn't take very long, but I thought that was a nice detail. And then I thought it was kind of funny that, like I was talking about Tyler earlier and how he was kind of bullying May and stuff, and then it turns out he seems to kind of. I thought he was gonna like fully join the group by the end, because the girls find out that he's also a fan of the same band, and they all kind of collectively lose their shit at the concert and everything. But then I think it was during the end, you just see it's just back to May being the girls. I was kind of hoping Tyler would join them, especially because it seems like he doesn't really. I feel like if I had to guess, he's probably like some kind of rich kid that doesn't really have friends. Because I noticed when May says, "Oh, I'm gonna charge you like $200 for me to come to your party," which for May, she's thinking like, yeah, he's probably gonna say no, I'm asking for a large amount of money. And Tyler just immediately says yes, like it's not a problem for him to pay $200 for this person to come to the party. And he already ends up buying his own ticket fine at the concert too, so I just assumed like, okay, this is someone who has money. Which then, by the time they find out he's a fan of the band, it's already when they're at the concert, which makes me wonder, like, if they had just told him, like, hey, we're trying to get money to be able to go to the concert, if he would have actually, like, been a little bit nicer of, like, May turning into a panda at his party or something, but they didn't know. But yeah, then you get the Four Town. That name just also feels kind of funny to me too. The Four Town performance, where I was thinking like, yeah, they sound like the Backstreet Boys and stuff, but like that's the point, like 90s, early 2000s boy band and stuff. Which I thought it was funny that like none of the kids at the concert, because it's all like people May's age is what it looked like, are scared of like, there's this gigantic panda that's invading the stadium, because they think it's all part of the show. But then they do eventually, it's kind of funny, they do end up running out, and they're making comments more of like the concert not being able to continue, or that it sucks, and less of like, holy shit, there's a giant animal that's running around and we're probably gonna get stepped on and die or whatever. Like none of them care or anything. I'm actually surprised that, I mean, I know it's a kids movie, that no one ends up getting hurt anyway, because like as the mom's walking around in the like giant panda form, I noticed there's like all this debris and shit flying out, and I'm like, how is no one getting hit by any of this? Uh, Oh, okay, yeah, now I can finally get to the part of, I was scrolling through my notes of like May talking to her mom. I thought it was interesting that the version of her mom that she meets in the spirit world is specifically like the mom as a teenager, where she's crying and saying how she got into, or it's not even that she says I got into an argument with my mom. She says something of like I hurt my mom or whatever, which, made me think of the scar thing, but probably emotionally as well. But she says like, oh, I'll never be good enough for her, and she just turned back into like her adult form and shortly after. But I felt really sorry for May's mom, because I mean, when she has like a bigger panda form than anyone else, so I thought like, okay, you're holding back a lot emotionally. But the fact that she shows up someone that looks like she's around like May's age or something in the spirit world makes me think like, damn, you've been holding this in for like your entire life basically. And it made me think like, oh, if May hadn't embraced the panda and that side of herself, and ended up having that conversation with her mom, would she have probably ended up kind of a similar path and stuff, and the circle in a sense wouldn't have ever ended up being broken. But yeah, having all those repressed emotions since she was a teenager is like probably got to be rough. um And then her mom ends up being cool with it, though, of being like. But I kept thinking about the line she says to May of like, you try so hard to make everyone happy, but you're so hard on yourself. Because I feel like I kind of am that way, but also other people in my life I know. So I thought that was like kind of good writing for that part. Um, and then it goes to like this whole happy ending, like epilogue thing. I like that since not the furniture, what am I saying? Like May's family, I noticed when they're using the panda form, like what they seal it into, like the mom seals it into a necklace, the grandma has what looks like some kind of jade bracelet, and the relatives have like jewelry and stuff, but then they seal the panda into different more kind of unique objects after like May decides to keep the panda and everything. Um, oh gosh, they make a joke about what the grandma ends up sealing hers into, but I don't remember. But I thought it was kind of funny that May's mom ends up sealing hers into a Tomodachi. Uh, the fact that it's a Tomodachi is interesting to me too, where it even plays like a Tomodachi, where the mom says something of like, "Oh, I have to keep it happy" or whatever. Of it becomes like literally like a Tomodachi, and you see the red panda in there, and it looks kind of like angry or something. So I wonder if that was part of the like red panda emotion metaphor thing of like the mom, like she does, still make the choice at the end to like seal her panda and stuff, but the fact that she has to feed it and everything and take care of it like a Tomodachi, I wonder if that kind of means like, oh, she's learning to be more kind of emotionally open in a sense, and kind of not holding in so much. So if that's what the detail is supposed to be, I think that's pretty nice actually. That was kind of like a cool way to show it. um Actually, that kind of, I'm going slightly off topic, reminded me just now of a an animated short I'd watched, where it was like this college aged person that had a Tomodachi, and the person got tired, and the Tomodachi came to life and started taking care of the owner instead. It was really sweet. I wish I remembered what it was called. Anyway, it is kind of funny to me though. Like May decides to keep the panda, which shows up in the form of her like keeping the red hair, which I really like the look she has with the red hair. I think it looks cool, but also she, I was kind of joking about it with my friends of like, oh okay, she's officially a furry now, where she has the panda outwardly too of like keeping the ears and the tail, but then has a human appearance otherwise. But then her panda form ends up being a tourist attraction for the temple, which I found kind of funny. Um, and then that's pretty much the end of the movie. I thought the credits were fun too, where it did remind me of like early 2000s movies a little bit. Of like the characters dancing on these like colored backgrounds. If anything, it reminded me a little bit of like the early Just Dance games, like art style wise and stuff. But no, now that I think about it, if it truly reminded me of early 2000s kids movies, it would have had a dance party ending. I haven't seen that in like a later 2000s kids movie in like years. I always found it kind of like, I used to find it fun, and then I found it kind of cringe, and now it's kind of nostalgic for me. So I gotta see. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this. I thought it was really fun. I'm actually really glad I got to watch it. I actually kind of ignored the group chat as I was watching because I was like trying to stay focused on the movie. That's why it's kind of hard when like other people have seen something and you haven't, so then everyone's kind of just being a bit more chill, and I'm trying so hard to like focus and follow along with the movie. But then I checked the group chat later, and it was comments people were making about the movie as we were watching it, and that was pretty funny, honestly. Um, but yeah, I had a nice time watching this. I'm glad I got to see it because again, I didn't think I was ever going to. It's less of like having the opportunity, and more so of like I didn't think I was gonna choose to watch it, but it was pretty nice to see a movie, for a teen growing up movie, but like kind of more for teen girls. I thought that was kind of cool. And there was stuff about it, and probably stuff with it being like a takes place in the early 2000s too that also felt kind of nostalgic, even though like I never, well, I guess it's more like 90s nostalgia now that I think about it because it takes place in 2002. It's like the type of boy band that Four Town is and the Tamagotchi and stuff. Like I never had a Tamagotchi, but I always see that for like these kind of like supposed to be nostalgic movies and stuff. But I guess that was probably more of like a 90s thing. Anyway, yeah, good movie. Nice to see. I feel like I'm probably behind on a couple Pixar movies because, like I mentioned, I'd seen Luca before. I'd like to rewatch that if I had the chance. I really liked that one a lot. And now I've seen Turning Red. It's wait, Encanto I think is Disney actually, but I've seen that too. Soul I just rewatched, which I'm so happy I did. That was so good. I know another one, Lightyear had come out. I think my friend said it was kind of bad, but I've never seen it, so. Mm. Um, but yeah, this was cool. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.